Great topic today. This is a big topic back in September when we did a similar type webinar, Advanced AI Prompting for CTI, from Theory to Practice. We decided to do this webinar again because things are changing, and not just because the guidance for how you would prompt is changing, but also there's new use cases that are popping up and different ways that you can use AI that are becoming more mainstream, and we wanted to share some of those ideas with the team. So that's what this webinar is about. We'll actually start it off in kind of that format. I've got some great speakers with us today, all from the Feedly team. I'll introduce them in just a second. Um, as per usual, I always like to do a little introduction of Feedly because not everybody knows about Feedly Threat Intelligence. So let me just do a little bit of background. We say that we pull in 10,000 trusted cyber sources. Really, we search over 140 million sources, but we narrow that down to around 6,000 that are in a cyber bundle, plus a bunch of other sources that we pull in. And the nice thing about our sources is we give you transparency. You can see what sources are in there. You can customize the sources that you're doing your analysis on. So if you don't trust a source, don't follow it. We pull all that stuff in. We have these AI models that we've had for several years that pull all that data out of every article that we scan, and they identify different things like the CVEs or the TTPs. And they don't just look for a TTP ID number, they're looking for descriptions that match that. So it's really a machine learning model that is pulling out that intel and it puts it all into our threat graph. And what is our threat graph? It's a connection, all the relationships that we've discovered from these different entities. So how threat actors are connected to the attack vector they use, or the CVE they exploit, or the malware that they're using. All that kind of stuff is in the back end of our threat graph. And the advantage of that is it allows you to see that information in a number of different ways. We have what has historically been the way that you would get that information collected is in AI feeds. AI feeds are these customizable feeds of the data that relate to your PIRs. So you can customize them. You can add different models. Like you can say, I'm interested in threat actors in a particular industry that are exploiting a particular TTP, for instance, and it'll give you that information so that therefore you're seeing a constant thread of content about that. Intel agents take that one step further. You're essentially customizing the level of content that you're interested in, and it's telling you not just what is new, but what is updated, and it's giving you really fine-grained detail that you can narrow this down to the things that are most interesting to your risk profiles. Ask AI allows you to do analysis on anything that you see. So if you see a bunch of articles, you can select the particular articles you want to analyze. You can ask it a question. You can tell it to format things into a particular report type format, briefing, for instance. Report Builder takes that a step further, allows you to really create these customizable reports that are repeatable and very consistent and well polished, and using AI, but also allowing you full control and full transparency, so you can customize and fit them exactly to what you want to say. Automated newsletters is allowing you to send that data out into your team, and you can create multiple newsletters. You can send daily newsletters to your SOC team, or maybe it's weekly letters of the highest important things to your CISO, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we have integrations, and we have something called the MCP server, which we've done a webinar about, that allows you to connect it back up to Claude or other LLMs and do essentially query with the power of the threat graph that sits behind the query to give you context and to make sure that it's much more valid. And the nice thing about the way Feedly is doing all this stuff with the Intel agents and the AI feeds and our Ask AI is we're really giving you the sources, so that anything that you're finding out there from all this data, we're going to give you a source that you can go verify and make sure that it's aligned with, you're comfortable with everything before you send it off to the stakeholders that you're supporting. All right, with that said, I'm gonna move on to the next slide, which is our team. So happy to introduce our four speakers today. We have Farah, Andy, Dave, and Josh, and each one of them. Farah's going to start by talking about some of the updates to prompting guidance. Farah is our product manager for AI. So Farah, do you want to say a couple words about yourself?
Yes. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Maybe some of you already attended previous session when we shared some guidance for prompting. For this session, we are sharing some updates on how to best prompt and think that you don't need to do anymore because the models are getting very sophisticated and capable.
All right. Andy, you want to introduce yourself and kind of just touch on your topic?
Hey, part of the Intel advisory team here at Feedly, and I'm also an Army reservist. So that's going to play a part here shortly where I pull some of my military experience into some of the prompting and techniques that I use with my customers.
Dave.
Hey everybody, I'm Dave Johnson. I've been at Feedly for about 3 years and I come from the FBI and private sector. And I'll be talking about how to use AI to create good visuals with the frontier AI models on the market.
Dave just did a SANS talk on this similar topic, and it's really good, really interesting visuals. So looking forward to that. Josh.
Hello, folks. I'm Josh. I've been with Feedly for about almost 3.5 years now, and have worked with clients, and then also I'm now more engaged in community-based initiatives. And my focus today is going to be on giving you a resource that myself and Farah worked on. This is a free resource that I'll be presenting on, and then showing you where to find it. And it's our CTI prompt library, which contains 12 different prompts for CTI use cases. But I will stop talking there, and would be diving into that towards the end of the webinar.
Awesome. As always, we encourage you to ask questions. Do that through the Q&A function, not the chat. The chat's kind of turned off. That just makes it a little less noisy. But the Q&A function will try to answer them either in the background in text or break into the conversation if it's relevant to the broader audience. Um, Before we get going, one of the things we always like to do is a quick finish the sentence exercise. So the team doesn't know what the question is, but we just go around really quickly. Your first thought is your best thought. So the question for today is, when I was a young child, the career I wanted to grow into was Farah.
Hmm. Engineer.
Engineer. Oh, wow. As a young child. Okay. Andy.
It's always been the military, specifically a pilot.
Awesome. Dave.
Clown. No, no, actually it was FBI agent. Mhm.
Wow. And you lived your dream there a little while for a while.
I was an analyst, not an agent, so
Oh, I see.
it's enough, yeah.
Josh.
A garbage man. And I'm not lying. I used to see the trucks and how these guys used to operate them with the buttons to work the mechanics, and I was obsessed with that. That was my biggest dream as a kid for years.
Josh, when I was young, I wanted to be a garbage man too. I will admit that. But my dream, I would say, was a professional baseball player, and I was average at best. So with that said, let's pass it on to Farah, and Farah's going to take the control and talks to us about some of these updates of prompting guidance.
Yes, let me share my screen. Um, um, there we go. Do you all see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So as I said, I presented last time in September 2025 some guidance on how we prompt and what are the best practices on prompting and things to avoid. And now, 5 months or 6 months after, we are making an update on about what we did because the models are getting improved over time, and there are things that we need to keep on, double down on them, and there are things that they are not needed anymore. So this is the purpose of the session today. A quick refresh about what we did last time. So last time I shared 5 tips and tricks that I personally use when I craft my prompt, especially when I craft prompts in Feedly platform. So I shared with the audience that I always try to see what will be the result, and I work backward to define the prompt that will give me those results. I always try to always give a rich context, not overwhelm the model, but give the thing that I feel that if I give to the model, the results will be improved. Be explicit and clear in instructions. it's really bad practice to be verbose in your prompt. The format that you would like to get. So don't expect that the model will imagine what the shape of the format that you are expecting. You need to be specific on what you would like to achieve. And then you always define the tone and the writing style, because otherwise you will get that very AI generated sounding content. So this is what I shared last time. And things didn't change dramatically, but there are things that we can take into account 5 months after what I shared last time. So what are the things that are today not needed? And yesterday we thought that it's very important when we are prompting. First thing is maybe I think all of you heard about the chain of thought prompting, is when you try to tell the model how to think, to take the time to think, to reason, etc., etc. This is something that was useful back in the time because the model were not that capable, and there are techniques where people say, take a deep breath and work step by step, etc. All that is not needed anymore today. Because today the model are very capable, they are very sophisticated, and they can reason internally. They don't expect you to tell them how to do. They just need what they need from you is what you would like them to do, and that's it. Don't tell them how to do it. So the chain of thought prompting is something really not up to date anymore. Another thing that is not good to keep today is if you try to overwhelm the model with defining the personality. It's good to give the model personality, but it's really not a good idea to try to deceive the model or give it incentive. Before, like last year or the years before, people will try to say to the model, "You are the best in that scope," or "I will give you I don't know what." So try to deceive the model, or try to make the model think that it's I don't know the award winning cybersecurity expert, etc. Today, you don't need to do that. Just be clean, be specific. You always need to give it the personality, but not overwhelm the model with how the personality should be. Just tell it that you are, for example, a CTI analyst, where you work, all those techniques that I shared last time, but don't do too much. So this is another thing that I advise to avoid when you are crafting prompts today. The things that are important or more important or still important, as I shared last time, are, for example, the giving the context. And last time I shared about the context engineering idea. We had the prompting engineering, now the context engineering. With prompt engineering, we try to play with the words to come up with the best prompt possible. But it's not only the prompt that matters. It's really what you feed, is all the input that you give to the model. It's not only the prompt, it's the data that you feed, is the access to the tools. And when I say context engineering, for example, in Feedly, there are part of it that it's handled by us, not everything that you need to do. So, for example, how we deal with context engineering in Feedly is all the data that we curate, all the articles that Sean talked about, is something that we feed to the model in a way that make it very specific how to access the data. The thread graph that we build is structured data where we connect all the threat actors, CVs, etc., and then we tell the model when to go to fetch vulnerability data in the thread graphs and when to go to fetch other type of data. So this is the art of designing the context window of the model. Another thing that is very important is giving some negative prompting. This is myself, I experienced it. So for example, because the models are becoming very, very sophisticated and very capable, sometimes they try to over-deliver and they go beyond what you ask them to do. For example, myself, when I prompt with Claude, I always if I don't need it to do that, I ask it not to run codes because they know how to run the code. Or I ask them not to over-optimize the response and be very simple on the response. So today I feel, at least myself, I am all the time telling the model the thing I don't want them to do. For example, if you are in Feedly and you would like to, because we are using the most capable model in Feedly, try to tell them what you don't need them to do. For example, if you want them to be concise, don't tell them not to overwhelm the response and the output. And the other thing that is still important, and I shared last time, is the structure of your prompt. Again, lengthy prompts are not good, but structured ones are the winner. Try to always follow that scheme that the schema that I shared last time. Start with your context, then you follow with the instructions, the constraints, the output format that you are expecting to see. And if you have any nodes, for example, the negative prompting, you put them in the nodes. And this is the, if you apply that all the time, at least you have that schema or that template that you will apply and you get consistent results. And this is the last thing that I wanted to share. And if I will sum up is, again, I shared last time, try to be direct, structured, explicit. Don't overwhelm the model. Don't trust the model. They are very capable. They are very smart. And try to interact with them and play with them as a teammate. And
That's great, Farah. I just noticed personally that you can a lot of times ask it very simple questions and get pretty decent answers. But if you want the particular format, if you want specific things, if you want to, you know, not have it speculate, those are really good tips. Okay, our next topic, we're moving quickly. Thanks you so much. And if you have any questions about Farah's topics, please enter them in the Q&A. And just a reminder, we are recording this. We will send out the recording tomorrow to everybody who is registered, along with the Q&A, along with the slides, along with some other links to resources. So Andy's going to take it over next.
Cool, thank you. So speaking on some of the structured stuff, so awesome work, Farah. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to pull some examples from my background in the military. So I'm a cyber fusion intel officer in the other half of my life. And so I wanted to pull some of those structured methodologies and templates and products that I've built in the reserves and bring them here and apply them to civilian cybersecurity operations teams. So some of the top or templates I'll cover today are the structured threat assessment, or what we call in the military a intelligence preparation of the battlefield, or IPB. We love our acronyms. So these will be generally targeted at intel teams preparing, to brief, leadership or incident response teams or SOC teams, and then leading into that, right? Risk mitigation plan. After all the detection response hunts have occurred, how do we document our findings, and what's a good structured way to do that so that we can provide feedback and continuous that loop? So these will be targeted more at the SOC incident response type teams. And then one a little bit different, just as a bonus, is a country brief for some of those like physical risk use cases, executive protection type things. So we'll move right along here. So a lot of teams have this general operational cycle, right? You assess the threat, you act on it, you document your findings, and then the cycle repeats, right? And so I wanted to show where these two templates that I'm going to talk about today fall, right? So the first one being that intelligence preparation of the battlefield, IPB, or structured threat assessment, if you want to demilitarize the terminology here. And then the last piece will be in the findings bit and documenting it through that risk mitigation plan. So starting with the, what I'm calling the strategic threat assessment, I found it very apt to quote Sun Tzu in this one, right? Knowing your enemy to kind of help predict the outcomes of the battle, right? And how that's going to turn out. So that's what this first template will take you through. So here you can just see a quick snippet of the prompt and the output. I know that we're going to be providing a lot of the prompts later on, so don't try and scribble all this down or take screenshots. Don't worry, it'll come out a little bit later. But I wanted to kind of show how it starts and how it looks, right? Like Farah mentioned, providing very structured prompting, showing exactly how you want everything to look. This one's a little bit more in depth, but it's very structured to kind of walk the LLM and the analyst with the output through the process of doing this intelligence preparation and analysis. So it starts with doing an executive summary, right? Setting the stage so that people understand what it is you're even going to be talking about, right? Who are the threat actors involved? Who was hit? Who, what, where, when, and why's, right? The 5 W's that you normally get. From there, you'll walk through, hey, what are we protecting, right? So this is the first step of what we call IPB in the military. Defining the operational environment. What is our area of operations? AKA, what is our environment? What are our tech stack? What are the things that we need to protect, we need to be concerned with? From there, the next step is to look at how do attackers see us? What is the attack surface that they're looking at from their perspective, right? So defining things like key terrain. Back in the day, that was a hill. If you could take the hill, you can own the battle, right? And so in the cyberspace, it's knowing what are your crown jewels, what are those critical systems that you need to maintain in order to stay, keep your business running or your operations going. And so defining, hey, what are those key terrains? What are those things we need to look at? As we saw with the Notepad++ supply chain vulnerability or supply chain attack recently, right? So this is the scenario we're going to work through today. Things like developer systems or admin systems that might be running that particular software. What are the attack paths that can be used in order to hit those particular systems? And what obstacles might be in the way, right? What countermeasures do we have in place for that kind of stuff? Next, you'll walk through threat profiling, right? So we'll talk about, hey, what are the threat actors? What are their intents? What are their capabilities? So we can fully understand, right? This is kind of like that diamond model analysis, but applying it more in a structured format for analysts and for the LLMs to produce this kind of information based off of reporting. And so as you can see throughout this, you'll see like citations that we like to add in here. And you'll see that at the very, very bottom there. But just really defining who's being targeted and why. And so from there, right, so showing capabilities, showing intent, right, because that really matters. So it shows, hey, once they do hit the objective, what is their thought? Is it exfil? Is it ransomware? Is it maintaining persistence, right? So all of this stuff is very important to identify so that we can start moving into scenario generation, predictive type analysis, right? So we now know what we're defending, how they see us, how they might attack us, what their capabilities are. So we can start looking at what is their most likely scenario? What is their, what we call courses of action? What is their most likely course of action? And then based off of what we know of ourselves and the environment that we're operating in, we can say, hey, we have a medium confidence or a high confidence that they may take this particular approach, and this is how they're going to do it, right? And then we also know, hey, what's the worst case scenario that might happen? If they do hit that particular admin system, what other things could they touch? So this really is just, again, structuring. You don't have to use this exact template. This is just a building point to walk you through that thought process of how do we start prioritizing our efforts when it comes to remediation, as opposed to just the knee-jerk reaction that a lot of security teams find themselves in of, oh, this report came out, what do we need to respond? Like, sometimes we might not have a playbook pre-built. So this kind of helps with taking that step back, taking that breath, and walking through the thought process before we start doing that. So you can see, right, like what next. So based off of the most likely, the worst case scenarios, we can then decide, hey, where do our priorities lie with those recommended actions and whatnot. And then finally, I think a really cool piece to the IPB process is this intelligence gaps and assumptions, right? Josh did a lot of talking about structured analytics, and one of the key pieces here is pointing out your assumptions, your key assumptions, or your intelligence gaps. I think this is a really good step to really note and annotate that, hey, we assume that we have these kinds of protections. And if it comes out that we don't have those protections, we don't have that log capability or visibility, we can at least address that now from the very beginning, right? So we can list our assumptions so that people can then prove us wrong or improve the visibility that we need in order to detect or respond to these particular threats. So with that, I'll bring back up the operational cycle, right? So we talked through how Intel drives this operation and prepares an order for, operation of some sort, whether it's a battle or a threat hunt or whatever it is. The next piece is going to be those RMP, those findings. And the cool part about a lot of the reporting that we're pulling to Feedly, right, is these are findings of other teams who have done the analysis, have done the work already. So we can actually take all of those findings and create an RMP. So suppose you don't have the time to create the Intel brief and do all that work ahead of time. Well, if we just need to respond, the good part is we can use this RMP as a here's what we're going to do, or here's what we have done in order to respond to a particular threat. So, we'll walk through this here really quickly. So again, here's a quick snippet of what the prompt looks like and kind of what the output will look like. I'm not going to walk through all the phases the same way I did with the Intel brief I just did a minute ago, but it's all kind of the same thing. It starts with a lot of that threat summary, the executive stuff, talking about who, what, where, when, and why, a lot of the intent, a lot of that setup, IOCs, et cetera. But the key piece to pull from this is based off of all that information, we can start putting together things like the recommendations of what we should do, right? So in this scenario, again, make sure we're updated to the latest version of Notepad++, right? And then from there, you can see how it runs through other potential scenarios and actions that we can take to investigate from there. So that is kind of all in all the operational cycle of how cyber teams operate. In the reserves, we send them out with the IPB so they can be prepared. They go out, carry out the operations, and then they come back with their findings and provide these risk mitigation plans. And so I hope these two templates can help y'all to start prioritizing your efforts and coming up with good ways to defend your networks. So with that, I'm going to take a little shift of just another example of a template that I've built in my time in the reserves. And so the idea here is being able to stay abreast with what's going on in the world. There's been a lot of kinetic things happening in the news. And so maybe you have suppliers in a particular country, vendors, or you're planning on traveling or opening a new location in a different place. So I just wanted to show kind of the flexibility and the variety of things that we can do with our templates and with Feedly and so on. So you can see here, I just put it together a really good brief showing things like key stats, things you should be aware of, cultural awareness, what is the current political situation, counter intel threats, terrorism threats to personnel that are US based, right? And so you can provide all of these particularly details, again, using all of the reporting and findings that you have and using really structured prompts to create really good outputs that you can then provide this to leadership. So with that, thank you so much for your time, and I'll pass it off to Dave.
Andy, before you go,
Yep.
there was a question for you. So Sammy had asked, well, first of all, said great strategic threat assessment content and template from Andy. How do we use AI to automate this or do it faster? So I know you have the prompt to help automate the Intel report. I don't know if the question was preceding that or if it was maybe to take it to the next step and how do you automate some of the actions from the prompt?
Awesome question. So, obviously Feedly is going to be the key here in this scenario that you can use the AI to do the AI filtering, right? Some of our AI feeds are capable of being able to filter down the news to those specific topics that you might be interested in. And then from there, Dave has done some wonderful talks about MCP and how you can then automate the chain, right? Based off of what we found here, we can then integrate these tools so then it can carry on follow-on actions. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks. One more question. The MITRE mapping is awesome for the IPB generation. It's all on OSINT data only? Question. We can't upload additional information, IOCs, to include in an appendix, for example.
I think we can talk about this. The PDF upload is coming for Feedly. I think it's coming out. So I don't know. Dave might be able to speak to that one.
Oh man, why did you tell everyone that? Yeah, it will be. Yeah, so yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, so in essence, Feedly is collecting mostly OSINT data. We do have some other things on the roadmap. One of them is some dark web data that is going to be coming in. It's in beta right now. And then the other is the ability to upload PDFs into your file and do analysis on that to augment. And then, any report you create, you can always attach other things to it, so you can copy the whole contents of a report, put it into Word document, for instance, add your own things there. So there's a lot of flexibility. But I'm passing on to Dave. Dave's going to show us some visualizations.
Can you see this okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so I was asked to make slides. It's really just this one, and then the whole rest of it's not in PowerPoint or in a slide deck. Apologies for anyone who is looking forward to that. But anyway, yeah, so I'm gonna be talking about visualizations. I did a big talk on it at SANS at the CTI Summit. And I learned a lot about using kind of the latest AI models to do visualizations. It's a very complicated thing for an AI to do to make like an aesthetically pleasing visual. So I think my first advice is really to use the latest models for making really good visuals. Otherwise, you'll have to work through it a lot more. It can take a lot of time. And one of the things I wanted to show you was the website that I put together for the SANS talk, and it's all about visualizations. It's sort of like it kind of runs you through different ways to create a visual, like holistically, like use it to help you with thinking, for presentation, for analysis. There's different ways you can do visuals in your analytic process. And some people think visuals are just an afterthought. They're not. They really can help you along the way through link charts, mind maps, all the way into infographics. So what I wanted to do is kind of show you that website really quick. Okay, there we go. And it's heavily inspired after a certain TV show and video game franchise. So I wonder if you can maybe take a guess to which one it is. This took an incredible long time. I used Google Gemini, and I don't know if you have any guesses, but it's Fallout, the Fallout franchise, and they just finished their season 2 on Amazon. But yes, this is a list of slides, and if you go through this, it's a good way to kind of introduce yourself to like how to start using visuals. But anyway, in doing this whole website, it was a really good exercise in knowing what works and what doesn't work. I probably went back and forth with the AI, hundreds of times in order to refine this presentation. But I want to save you the heartache and kind of give you what I've learned along the way. The first thing I want to do, though, is to kind of show you how visuals can be used in Feedly. So in Feedly, let me get my face out of the way. Let's see. There we go. So in Feedly, you have a lot of ways you can interact with article data. You start off with this threat landscape, and it kind of gives you a rundown on all the things that have happened recently. But we have this concept called Intel agents. And what I love to do is use one of our latest Intel agents. And Farah mentioned with using LLMs in today's day and age, it's mostly about context. And the good thing about what Feedly does is that we provide you that curated context based on our threat graph. So it's not like scraping the web. It's just intelligently pulling out the right context for you. And so in this page, we're able to kind of show the context of cyber campaigns, cyber attacks. So here, what I want to do is kind of show you the filters that we've got really quick. This isn't about Feedly. This is just a way to get context. You can grab your context in different ways. We'll do past 30 days. We'll filter for, let's see, maybe tech industry. And then we can sort by trend. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. So Notepad++, Andy touched on it in his presentation. Really interesting. When I first saw that, I was like really curious on sort of the mapping of the communications with the command and control activity. So if you're doing like detection engineering work, I wanted to show you just an interesting prompt to try. So what you can do in Feedly is you can hit the cyber attack, and we do have a timeline. So we have built-in visualizations already. But the cool thing is that we expose all the cyber attack data for this campaign to an LLM that's baked into Feedly. And so here, what I'd like to show you is kind of a cool um, way to show the C2 or command control communications from the artifacts on the endpoint and how that kind of looks at a holistic level. And the cool thing here is that it really doesn't take a whole lot to make an effective prompt, like Farah said, being very explicit, but not heavily, describing the role is not necessary anymore. So you can get away with something that's not super long, but as long as you're very specific, it can perform really well. And so I'll hit this one. You can kind of see how it works. And here, Feedly is basically just doing sort of the context engineering for you. So everything that Farah described, she's worked on and helped with the machine learning team here, pulling the right context. And here it's sort of like sketching out what the mermaid diagram should look like. So we render mermaid directly in Feedly. It's usually a pretty quick visualization to make. I asked for it to do a lot of stuff here, so I'm kind of curious on how it looks. The nice thing is that you can kind of see how this is built, um, as it's generating here. Um, this is the visual that was created, and I call this like a sequence diagram. It's a special type of visualization in Mermaid. And if you see it, you can see that there's basically different pillars here. You've got the victim host machine, you've got an installer or loader, C2 server, and different scripts. And you can see kind of how all the different pieces interact with each other. And this is really good to kind of set the ground state, the stage for detection engineering. So in this one, it's really, there's a lot to unpack here. I'm not going to go through it, but you can see how commands were run and how they interact with different pieces of the attack chain. So it's like a little bit different than putting things in MITRE ATT&CK. To me, this is helpful for detection engineering. We can share the prompt. Um, and the nice thing about creating a visual like this and providing that framing to the LLM, you can see after this, I said, end with detection opportunities. So the LLM's already primed to kind of look for these kind of detection signals in the campaign. And then here you can construct a table, and this can have a lot of really interesting detection opportunities from that too. So yeah, that's a little bit of a Feedly pitch, but you can do this with anything else. You can do this with web search in Claude. And then the next thing I want to show you is kind of how to make visualizations using Claude, using the Feedly MCP server. You can also use web search. But that prompt I had was a little bit complex. This one is really stupid simple. And in the presentation in that website, I basically talk about how visuals can help you understand things and not something that you need to show other people. So even playing around with very simple prompts with LLMs today, they're very capable and it'll give you something that you can kind of play around with. So it's basically your own personalized interactive briefing site where you can understand and get a really good sense of the intelligence about a certain topic. And I like to do um, adversary baseball cards using Feedly. It's really cool. You can have this in like a graph visualization too. And if it's just for you, you don't have to be really picky about the visual. So you can get away with something really simple like this. The next thing I want to do is kind of show you how to like upscale this and be a little bit more professional. And what I like to do is prompt it with something really specific. Um, give it a presentation ready set of infographics for an executive level audience. So still like saying who the audience is really important, but you don't need to overstate it. From a design angle, what's really helped me when I did design work on this website, is to really emphasize minimalism and more of like monochrome palettes and simple typography, ask for readability, and maybe just a single accent color. And these are kind of design principles. You don't want to have like a clash of a whole bunch of different colors. So having a single accent color, I like red because black and red seem to go together. And then the rest is sort of like a grayscale monochrome palette. So even with this, you kind of like really transform this. Otherwise, you can get lots of different random colors like this. It looks like a carnival, honestly. It's good for you, but not for presenting to someone else. And this is cool. You can see these different things here. Now you can take screenshots and even put these in a presentation, but you don't have to do that. Um, what I want to show here is like taking this a little bit of a step further and actually giving it a palette of colors and using something that you've taken inspiration from on a different website. Maybe you're using a color palette generator, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But you can actually use an LLM like Claude to create a presentation based on a specific brand or color palette. You can actually upload an entire presentation that adheres to your marketing and your brand, and it will infer a lot of the styling uh, design decisions based on that. So you can have something really consistent. And this is a really interesting one. We'll share this one too, but creating a presentation straight up for an executive briefing, and you have some really interesting infographics. Infographics were never something I was really good at, and I wasted tons of time doing it. And like, if that LLM can do it, great. And it's less time for me to work on it. They can go back to actually analyzing things as an analyst. Um, so that was something I wanted to show too. And then for inspiration, like maybe you have no design chops, and that's fine. What a lot of designers do is they get inspiration from other websites. So one example is Dribble with three B's in it. And once you get into it, you can sign up and kind of look for different types of visuals on different sites. And so you can kind of see, I like looking at dashboards in particular. I think those are pretty good. Some people take screenshots of websites or even going and get the HTML source code and put that into an LLM too, so you can emulate some of the style. I like to be a little bit more fair and kind of just use this for inspiration. But you can kind of pick out what themes you like and what colors go well together. And then one website that one of our designers mentioned recently was the supercolors.studio site. And in this one, you can create palettes that complement each other and are basically rated on basically these design scores for readability and accessibility. So part of design is like having an instinct for, what kind of goes together. And if you don't have that, a site like this can help a lot. And then once you have this, you can actually you can click on parts of the palette and then see how they would look in a dashboard. You can see parts of it here. And then you can put them together, different palettes together, and then export the CSS variables. And then once you copy this, you can put this directly into Claude, and then it can pull out all the colors for that palette. So you can get something that is a little bit more cohesive instead of this, like the bear emoji and the 78 colors. I don't know. It's a little bit, it's good for you, but maybe not for an executive. And that's all I had. So,
Hey, Dave, thanks so much. We did have a couple questions for you. One was, have you thought about integrating your FlowViz project into Feedly?
oh yeah, that is something I'm hoping to talk to the team about. We have a big planning meeting. So if you have any ideas in the chat for what Feely should work on in the next year, wink, wink, foot stomp, you can put it in the chat and we can talk about it. So it's perfect timing. I'm hoping we do. We got some other ideas baking as well. So
Yeah. And then one other question was, are any of these visualizations being able to, can you add any of them to the newsletter?
That is a great question. I think yeah, I don't know the latest on that, but I think visuals and adding that to the newsletter is one of the top recommendations we've heard. So we're listening to the users about that, and we're taking a look.
All right, I'm gonna stop right there. Let Josh take the final leg here, and we'll try to answer the other questions either in the chat here or they'll be in the document. I will also send out a link to a Notion page that will have all the Q&A and all the questions and answers that we did there. So.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Sean. Super interesting, Dave, as well, to see how you do your visualizations. And for the last portion of this webinar, I promised you a free resource, and that is what I will present on, how to find it and then how to use it. So the resource is the CTI prompt library. This is something that myself and Farah primarily worked on. However, it contains a whole series of CTI use case prompts that the team have worked on and have tested with clients and have developed in their personal and spare time. So it's definitely a team effort. Now, to find this resource, the first thing that you're going to do is go onto TI Essentials, and I'll put this into the chat feature, which has disappeared since I moved screen. There we go. It's now in there. So for those of you who are not familiar with TI Essentials, it's where we host all of our public-facing blogs, guides, articles, and resources. It's a free site. Anyone can access it. You don't have to be a Feedly customer. And it doesn't require any kind of profile to access any of the reports. You can use them straight away. So we've just uploaded the CTI prompt library here. And again, I'll chuck a link to this specifically into the chat for you to access. And then what I'll do is I'll run you through the resource and then we'll look at an example of how to use this, the CTI prompt library. So this is quite a in-depth report that recaps on some of the principles Farah already shared. We've got a nice introduction here that gives you some instructions on how to use this library. And we'll come back to what we mean here by replacing the square brackets. This is a very fun variable that we've added into each of the prompts. Here with our table of contents, you can see that we've got prompts. We've got 12 in total, and they're covering use cases that include cyber attacks, threat hunting, vulnerability intelligence, geopolitics, and specific intelligence products. The first section, though, covers general best practices. And this is where a lot of the principles that Farah spoke about in the first part of the webinar are repeated. So you've got some good documentation here with some examples. And then we run into the actual prompts themselves. So under cyber attacks prompt, you'll find the first one is a diamond model of intrusion analysis prompt. The way that we structure these is we have the prompt laid out here so that you can very easily copy and paste it in a code, hosted in a code box. The prompts are quite in-depth and detailed because we put a lot of work into them. And beneath that, we have three sections. The first one is just why this prompt matters, to give you some more context about why it's important, who it can benefit, and then finally, how to action the output. We have each of these sections for every single prompt, just to give some additional context about the prompt and its use case and how we've found it works well with our clients. To jump back up to the actual prompts themselves, we have several different sections that are consistent in most of the prompts. The first one is this variables section, which I absolutely love. Because these prompts are quite long and we wanted to make them very easy to edit and customize to your particular profile, we have added in variables that include job role, sector name, country and region, stakeholder, team names, product and services, and data and reports. Now, all you need to do is copy and paste this and then enter in the information next to these square brackets and colons here. And what this does is it then customizes the whole prompt. So whenever there's a mention of a job role, you won't have to go and change that particular part of the prompt. Instead, because you've changed it up at the top, it does all those changes automatically. So this is a big time-saving measure. However, if you don't have a strong preference to change any of this information, we have added in a condition that that the variables will automatically be filled in if that information is left blank. So we can see if someone doesn't enter in job role, we will automatically add in threat intelligence analyst. If someone doesn't enter in sector name, we'll do cross industry, so on and so forth. So this is a very quick way to save the time of the user of this particular prompt. And crucially, when it comes to data and reports, this is the data set that we are asking the prompt to be run on. And this will default to access your own data set if we don't make any changes here. So when it comes to context engineering, this is a very important point. Now, we've designed all of these prompts so that they can be used in any large language model. It's not Feedly exclusive. We've written them in quite an open way so that they can be used in a variety of LLMs to make this as broadly applicable and valuable to as many people as possible. Beneath that, we have a context, a context section with a couple of context tags, the task that we want the large language model to follow, the output format with different markdown formatting included, some recommendations to be included at the end here because we're very keen to make these prompts actionable, and then some guidelines. So these are more of the kind of formatting stylistic guidelines, and we can see that we've added in some details. Sometimes it's very important just to reiterate if you want a certain type of output to really put that in all caps so that you're setting those conditions and constraints on the large language model. So we have 12 of these, and what I'm going to do is quickly show you an example of how to run them. And for this, we're going to use Claude. So I'm going to take this prompt, jump into Claude. And for this one, I'm just going to do some minimal editing. So I just want to change the data and reports that are used. I don't want Claude to use all of its own data because I'm more keen to do some context engineering. And I'm going to say only use the attached report. And for this, I'm going to go and steal this lovely report from Unit 42. And this one is a really great in-depth report. It's pretty sizable. It contains information on a couple of different threat actors, a few different campaigns. There are TTPs, and it's a very rich report. So I've downloaded that, and then we're just going to drag this into Claude. And I'm going to leave everything else the same. So all of these other variables will default now to the information that we see here. And then I'm going to run this in Opus 4.6. Now, whilst that runs, I'm going to quickly show you the other prompts that we have in the CTI prompt library. So we've got one on the Diamond model. We've got a red team emulation plan prompt, a visual attack flow prompt. So this is one that will resonate well with Dave. And this one I like because we give different options for visualizations because different large language models have different preferences. And through testing, we found that giving 4 different options works well. We've got some threat hunting prompts, a quick way to build threat hunting hypotheses, mapping threat actors to TTPs, and this one has a nice table. A vulnerability assessment table. So if you're doing some CVE intel, this one will be good for you. CVE chaining. Beneath that, we have our geopolitical prompts. So tariff monitoring, as this is something that we still have to do. And that one has a table output. And then we've got the geopolitical implications of cyber attacks, recognizing that that's more of a demand I'm seeing with clients and stakeholders, is that the relationship between the two threat landscapes. And then we've got industry threat intelligence reports, a vulnerability advisory prompt, and finally, a threat actor profile. So you can go and use any of these. As mentioned, this is currently available in TI Essentials, and you can go and copy and paste and edit and use any of them. If we return to Claude, I can see that it's still working away because it's quite a sizable prompt. So luckily, here's one that I made earlier. And we can go and take a look at the output. So I've run the prompt. We can see all of the externalized thinking, which I really appreciate. And then we have 2 outputs. The first one is the visual. And for this, we've got two different diamond model visuals because there were two separate threat actors that were heavily discussed in the report. So we've got this, which we can take away and download, copy and use elsewhere. We can also go and access the code and do edits. And then for the second output, I asked it to produce a report. Again, very heavily focused on a diamond intrusion analysis. And we can just run through the different sections that we see here. So we can take both of these outputs, edit them, change them, and use them in our workflows. So that is a very quick example of a CTI prompt from the CTI prompt library. This is available now in TI Essentials, and the link's been shared with you, so you're welcome to go and use it. With that, I'll stop sharing and pass back to Sean. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks so much. There are a couple of questions that are still here. Got a minute left. Let's see if we can handle them. One for you, Josh. Have you noticed any significant changes in output quality using Sonnet versus Opus? And then goes on to say Opus is quite expensive and Sonnet is usually a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, in the tests that I ran of the prompts in the CTI prompt library, I found the best results were always generally with Opus. A lot of the testing was done with Opus 4.5, so 4.6 offers even more capabilities. And yeah, having tested a lot of different large language models, Opus is one that still does range through as more effective in terms of output. Cost is a separate discussion, but yeah, I am a big fan of what I've seen with Opus personally.
Okay. One for Dave. Were you using Claude Code to create the visuals or just standard Claude?
It depends on the visual. So like with a really complicated interactive website, what I do is I design first in something like Gemini. Gemini actually, I think, incorporates screenshots. So it's a little bit better for quick design stuff. And then what I do is I download the code once I have a good prototype, put it in Claude Code, and then I kind of build it out that way some more.
Awesome. And then one question I think I'm going to ask both Farah and maybe Dave to kind of weigh in on is what differentiates Feedly AI from other LLMs like ChatGPT, Copilot, Perplexly? So Farah, do you want to start on kind of how you so Farah's our product manager for all this AI stuff. So she's part of the working close with the engineering team and making sure that everything is good and high quality.
Yes, so ChatGPT and those tools are good, but are very generic. Our AI is very CTI specific. So we fine-tune it. What I said, we build this context engineering around and put the scaffolding around the models. So it's not the generic tool where you come and ask whatever question you have in mind. It's very, very specific. We feed it with our created sources. We have our threat graphs, is our IP, is everything that we know about threat actors, malware, CTPs, etc., that are very structured and very accessible to the LLM. So it's very different. We are not playing in the same environment. ChatGPT is good, but it's very generic. You can ask it a question, you can get an answer, but it's not tailored to your need. We know what the analysts are asking for and what is their expectations. So we crafted the LLM to answer those type of needs of our customers.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Do you want to add anything to that or?
No, no, that's well said.
Yeah, the one thing I will add is that I mean you do have a couple of things that maybe isn't apparent, but you do have so if you're looking at a feed, for instance, or if you're looking at a particular insight card that's focused on a threat actor or a malware, um, it's going to respond in the context that you provide. So you can select what articles you want to have it analyze. You can select, if you're asking about a particular CVE that's on an insight card, it's going to answer the question in context of that thing. And it's not going to really deviate or get outside of that. And it's going to provide citations to everything that it responds with. So you're going to have the ability to go back and check and verify everything. So we think that's the major differentiators, just focusing on the context that's provided to the LLM and fencing it in so that it doesn't It doesn't provide some answers that you don't need, and then also giving you the citations so you can go and verify everything before you share it with your team. Um, all right. Well, thanks so much, team. Really good examples. As I mentioned before, we will be sharing everything in a note. There'll be two links in the note. One will be directly to this video. The other one will be linked to a Notion doc that'll have other resources like the guide that Josh talked about, Andy's prompts, Dave's prompts, a couple of other things that were mentioned in the chat, like, hey, what about the threat graph? Can I hear more about that? We'll put a link to the threat graph document that we have in there. So if you need more of that kind of stuff, please follow the Notion link and you'll see all that stuff there. So with that said, thank you so much for joining. And our next webinar, you can go out and register for it already, is going to be on career guidance for CTI analysts. So really good topic. We have some leaders in CTI from outside of Feedly that are going to be in here and talking about this. And Josh is going to lead that conversation. So it's going to be very good conversation. You can see a place to register for it on feedly.com/CTI-sessions. And we'll also be sending out an email and other notifications in the next week. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.